1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Gumby, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters gon' move. Whatever click you choose, you better
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to Life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life. Yeah, that's me gassing right there on that intro. And if you want to get that song, it is available only through purchase from me on a 10-song EP. You can get straight from me on digital download, man. If you're interested, hit me up on my email, 16tolifemusic@gmail.com, Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle me $20, and I'm going to get it to you ASAP.
What up, cuz? What up, blood? What up, gangsta?
If you a Crip or Damu and want your phone case to represent too, just tap in with cases and more.printify.me. They got different designs, different artists, football teams, basketball teams. So just be sure to tap in, and I'm guaranteeing you, you're going to find something that you like. It don't matter if you got the latest Apple 16, 15, if you got the 10, if you got the 8. It don't matter if you got Androids, Samsungs, man. He definitely is going to have a case to fit your phone. Just tap in with cases and more.printify.me. Now, initially, he was offering a 10% discount on all orders. But I said, hey, man, listen, I got a lot of dedicated subscribers. I got a lot of dedicated followers. Do you think you can go up to 20% off? And he said, no problem. So for a limited time, you get 20% off. You get free shipping and handling. I'm going to leave a link in the description that's going to take you right to the online store. So recently, there was a video that came out by a brother from Hoover, an individual by the name of Gumby. And he was saying that when he done time with Big U dropped his flag, right? And so I happened to do time with Big U in Ironwood around 2001. And so before I get into my video, let me play you guys a bit of what Gumby said during his interview.
Over, like I said before, I went to prison. I'm saying I was 18 years old. I'm saying I opened up High Desert State Prison. I had an opportunity to meet y'all calling him Big U right now, but at the time, you know what I'm saying, I'm hold it out. Listen, he is a very powerful figure, you know what I'm saying, in our gang culture, and respected and feared. But at the end of the day, go did some PC shit. Hoover. Girl turned Muslim. He dropped his flag on Hoover. He was a Crip when he went to jail, and he dropped his flag. I ain't seen nowhere on the Crip application where you can drop your flag for 16, 15 years and then get out of prison and then come back and control and be the whole leader of LA. No, once you drop your flag, it's over with. Whether you turn Muslim, Christian, or whatever, and that's what he did. Big U was a Muslim his whole time in prison. He was a Muslim in jail. That was the last time I seen him. I believe his name was Hannibal.
Hannibal.
And he wasn't just a Muslim. He was a bean pie Muslim. Like
what is a bean pie Muslim?
A bean pie, a Malcolm X. He dropped.
Like he was in the Nation of Islam?
Yes, completely. He was no longer seen as a Crip.
Now, when Gumby and Big U done time together. I wasn't there with those individuals, so I'm not trying to discount his experience, speak on his experience, anything like that, right? I'm just speaking specifically to my experience and when I happened to run across Big U. So when I ran across Big U, I don't remember exactly when it was, right? But I want to say it was either 2000, maybe early 2001, in a prison known as Ironwood. Ironwood is a level 3 prison down there in Blythe, California. When Big U happened to hit the yard, right, due to the fact that I am from geographically quite a ways from Los Angeles, maybe about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, somewhere around there, I had never heard of Big U. I happened to be in a cell at that time with an individual, though, who was from LA, and he was well knowledgeable of Big U and a lot of other things going on out there in LA due to the fact that he lived out in LA, and also his father owned a couple of businesses that a lot of people would frequent and this and that, right? So he definitely was in the know about all those things. So he told me who Big U was when he originally hit the yard, right? Now, you have some individuals who in prison, they have an extremely recognizable or well heard of reputation, and of course Big U happened to be one of those individuals, right? So when a dude like Big U, with Big U's his presence and his reputation, when he hits the yard, you know, word spreads, right? So pretty much, probably I want to say maybe in a day or two, you know, everybody knew that Big U was on the yard. Now, just so happened they happened to move him into the same building that I was in, right? And so eventually he happened to move, either it was right next door or it was 2 doors away from me. I don't remember exactly which one, right? And so when he happened to move a door or 2 away from me, he happened to be in a cell with a good friend of mine, Baby Crazo from Raymond. I don't know if you guys have seen him before. He's done several interviews on Kev Mac. I've interviewed him a time or two. He's been on a few other channels, right? So now, first and foremost, right, when you doing time in prison, most individuals will house with who they affiliate and associate with, right? So before Big U was in the cell with Baby Crazo from Raymond Avenue Crip, he happened to be in the cell, I believe it was with an individual from Santana Block, a Crip in Compton, right? So by me being cool with Baby Crazo, I believe it's okay to say that I became relatively cool eventually with Big U as well. You know, we had a lot of talks. We would talk, play basketball together. He loved to play Monopoly. We play Monopoly. Actually, he put me on the phone a time or two with the rapper Corrupt. Corrupt was coming down to visit him around that time and things of that nature. So we had a lot of different talks, right? So my perception of Big U definitely was not that he was a Muslim, he was a full-fledged Muslim, or anything of that nature, right? Now, at the time I ran into Big U, I want to say he probably was about 34, 35, maybe somewhere up in there, because he's a few years older than me, and I believe I was around 30 around that time. And so the reason I think it's important to mention his age is because, you know, some individuals, not all, but some individuals, whether they're doing time in prison and they're from a gang or they once was from a gang, at some point in time, you know, they mature a little bit. They get away from the activities, the vernacular that individuals who are younger and still, you know, in that gang life would do. Even though they still may be representing, you won't necessarily see them doing the things or acting the way that a 20-year-old is acting, right? So do I remember Big U using phrases or terminology that's specifically associated with Crips? Yes, I do. Do I believe that do I remember him just overusing stuff like that? You know, because you have some dudes, man, who will, you know, say cuz every other sentence and things like that, right? Was he one of those individuals? No. But like I say, keep in mind, at this point in time, he was 34 years old. At that point in time, I'm 30 years old. I'm not cousin and, you know, using certain terminology associated only with Crips all the time in my speech and in my language as well, right? So do I remember him going to Juma and practicing his faith? Yes, I do. You know, matter of fact, some dudes called him Big U. Some dudes called him Hannibal. I believe more often than not, I called him Hannibal. Actually, I remember one time in a conversation we was talking, and I asked him, how did he happen to acquire the name Hannibal, right? Because Hannibal is not like a regular, like Muslim name anyway that you might hear in prison, like, you know, Rahman, Muhammad, you know, Nasir, things like that, right? Talib, you know. So, and keep in mind now, this was maybe about 24, 25 years away, right? And 25 or 24 years ago. And so I can't remember everything accurately, right? But if my memory serves me correct, I believe he said that someone had gave him that name due to his leadership type skills, right? Hannibal actually is the name of a African general. You know, I believe he was from Carthage, and he went to war and won some big battles against the Romans back in those days. And I believe he led a bunch of soldiers across fields on elephants and things of that nature, right? Once again, the original name Hannibal was a general who was from North Africa in a place called Carthage. And so that's the name. That's how the name was given to him, right? I also remember talks with him and stuff, and he was telling me how at some point in time before he came to prison on that case, he had gotten some trouble or whatever, and he was on the run, and he was out, I believe, in Chicago, and he had went to a bookstore, you know, and he was talking to some female who worked in the bookstore, and she was asking him about, I believe, his Jerry curl or whatever, and she gave him the book Malcolm X. And so he read the book, he cut his hair and things of that nature, right? So he definitely was, you know, an individual who was in there practicing his faith and things of that nature. Now, you'll have a lot of individuals, right, in prison who practice their religious faith but still associate heavily with wherever they're from. You know, one thing I definitely can say without a doubt is that Big U definitely had the respect of everybody on that yard, especially the blacks, and especially from his Pacific area and those who were his immediate homeboys and things of that nature. You know, due to the fact that he's facing some very serious criminal charges. I don't want to get too deep into that, but when I say that he was well respected by his immediate collective, he was extremely well respected. Now, actually, the first time that I seen someone make salat, and I believe that is the Muslim prayer, if I'm not mistaken, hopefully I'm not saying that wrong, but yeah, that's the prayer that the Muslims make. I was in the county jail. I was in the crypt tank, and the first person that I seen make salat actually was Dan Tanner from Long Beach Insane, and he asked my homie at the time, Popeye, who was a next door neighbor of mine, who unfortunately ended up getting the death penalty. But now Popeye and Dan Tanner had a prior relationship because they had been in prison together before they once again met up down there in the county jail in 1994. So Dan Tanner asked Popeye, he's like, hey, cuz, you want to make salat? Let's make salat. You know what I'm saying? So we're in the room chilling. So I stepped outside of the room and they did their prayer, whatever. Now, like I say, at this point in time, I'm young. I'm maybe 22 or whatever, somewhere around there. So later on, I asked Papa, I'm like, hey, what's up, cuz? You a Muslim? And he explained to me, though he was not a Muslim, he believed in the Muslim faith, and from time to time, he would make prayer. So I say all that to say that you definitely have a lot of individuals in prison who will practice their religious faith, but don't necessarily go full-fledged Muslim, full-fledged Christian, and walk away from whatever it is they're representing. Now, there are times, right, depending on the individual, because you have times in prison where, now, in a lot of prisons, the Muslims are relatively deep. You know, they'll have decent numbers, and, you know, when things get tumultuous or hectic, they will definitely come together and rival each other like any other car, Crip, Blood, Southerners, whatever, right? And so at times you do, when you have an individual practicing a religious faith kind of deep, sometimes his homies may ask him, hey homie, you know, what's up with you? Where do you stand? Especially if, you know, let's just say you're a Crip and your homies happen to get into the Muslims, and the Muslims and the Crips are side off. They want to know, okay, well, you know, who are you pushing with, right? So I have seen stuff like that happen before. I have actually seen people politicked on by their homies because they want them to pick a side. You know, I remember a specific dude who ended up getting his jaw broke when we was in North Kern, and honestly, I think that his homies kind of like politicked on him because he was small. He was from Northern California. He was from Sac, and he didn't really have many homies on the yard because they didn't really have to bust on him like that and bust his jaw. He could have just told him, okay, do it moving. But not to say that situation happened with Big U. But what I'm saying is, in a situation like that, due to Big U, his reputation, him being who he was, he definitely had a reputation as a dude who was with the business and who was squabbing and all that. His homies wouldn't have even pushed up on him and asked him, make a decision or something like that. A lot of times, especially when you're black, that decision is left to the individual, and most of the time your homies just want to know, are you still riding with us or whatever, because if something happened, are you going to be there? And if something happened to you, are we going to be there to support you, or whatever faith you are, walking in, are they going to support you or whatever, right? So it all depends. But I have definitely seen individuals in prison, practice a religious faith, and then when something jump off with their respective collective, they're right there participating, right? So by no means did it ever occur to me that Big U had dropped his rag. He, like I say, he definitely was, well respected and definitely well connected and associated heavily with his respective homeboys. Now, was he down there set tripping on some BS and gang banging? No. Matter of fact, there was a dude in the building who was from A-Trade Gangster, and the individual who was from A-Trade Gangster and Big U, I would say, had a more than cordial relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because they would speak often, laugh, joke, clown. So it wasn't no animosity between these two individuals. And like I say, once again, sometimes when an individual reaches a certain amount of maturity in prison, certain things like that go out the window, because the individual who I'm talking about, he was a lifer too. He was a lifer, and around that time I believe he'd already had in maybe about 16, 17 years. So when you do time like that, especially back in those days, a lot of times you realize that an individual who's the same color as you, regardless of where he's from, is not your enemy in a situation where you're in a prison setting, when you definitely have you have bigger enemies to worry about, other races and things of that nature, right? So was he down there set tripping and gang banging and stuff? No. He definitely was about the unification of his people, and specifically considering who he considered his people were at that time, right? Whether it be the neighborhood that he was from, sometimes it depended on the situation, whether it was from the neighborhood that he was from, or whether it happened to be a black issue. I remember one day we was leaving the basketball court, and an Asian dude said something to a black dude who wasn't from Big U's specific area. He said something in the kind of like something relating to violence or taking the fade or whatever. Big U immediately turned around and checked old boy, let him know, hey man, you ain't fit to do nothing to nobody black. Started walking up on him, and then the Asians that was there, said, oh no man, we ain't tripping, we don't want no problems. They got they homie, and they got on. And so this is just my video about my experience of doing time with Big U, and I can say 100% that during my encounters with him, he definitely had not dropped his flag. He was who he was, Anyway, y'all already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.